We will drain the swamp.
According to a new report, the Trump swamp is now crawling with at least 187 former lobbyists who have been appointed to positions inside the Trump government and thousands of lobbyists outside of the Trump government profiting from the Trump swamp, including huge profiteers like Michael Cohen, who never registered as a lobbyist, but was in effect being paid as a lobbyist of some sort by giant international corporations. When fired Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski set up a lobbying shop in Washington, his partner told a reporter that they had more clients than they could handle and they had to turn some away. And President Trump is constantly creating new openings for lobbyists, like threatening tariffs that lobbyists then try to get exemptions from for companies and countries. The same thing is happening now with the president's threat to reimpose sanctions on companies doing business with Iran. That just means hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying fees will be paid by companies that will then be exempted from the Trump sanctions, which might never be imposed on any company once the lobbyists go to work. In a new report from the Wall Street Journal, Michael Cohen helped a law firm recruit a corporate client with ties to Jared Kushner's family company. Among 5 clients Mr. Cohen delivered to Squire Patton Boggs before the firm terminated the contract with him in early March was U.S. Immigration Fund, LLC, which last year organized a trip to China for several Kushner company officials, including Mr. Kushner's sister, Nicole Meyer, to seek investors for commercial and residential towers in Jersey City, New Jersey, in exchange for residency visas that would allow the Chinese investors to live in the United States. Joining us now is David Frum, a senior editor for The Atlantic and author of Trumpocracy, The Corruption of the American Republic, and Matt Miller, the former spokesman for Attorney General Eric Holder and an MSNBC contributor. And David Frum, the Michael Cohen saga is but one window into what has truly become an unprecedented size swamp that the Trump swamp now is.
Well, Lawrence, the question I think you have been asking for the past half hour and that Rachel was asking for the hour before that is a variant of, an episode from the old Sopranos show. Many people have remarked how much Michael Cohen looks like he's a performer from that show. You'll remember, if you watched the Sopranos, the thing that got you into most trouble, that might get you dead, was not kicking up. You got the fat envelope full of cash, you took your little piece of it, and then you delivered the thicker part of the envelope to the next ranking person in the organization. And I think that's the thing everyone is struggling with, is Donald Trump notoriously hates people making money off him without sharing. Michael Cohen made a lot of money very fast. Did he kick up?
And that's exactly what Michael Avenatti has been suggesting in our discussions, is that the possibility that there might be a very dark answer to that. Matt Miller, here's a president who creates opportunities for lobbyists unlike anything we've ever seen, including when he apparently randomly decides to attack a particular company on Twitter for whatever its perfectly legal business is within the United States. What happens to the lobbying bills for that company the day the president launches a Twitter attack on that company?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Lawrence. I mean, if you look at Michael Cohen's sudden influx of business, I think you have to go back and remember what was happening during the transition. The president was randomly attacking companies like GM, like Ford, like Toyota, and every time that happened, all of these companies were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do in response. And other companies, every major company in America was trying to figure out what to do to head that off. And in the middle of that, Michael Cohen comes cold calling CEOs, cold called the Novartis CEO, and offers, what is essentially a protection racket. I will introduce you to people in the Trump world. I will show you how this world works. And I think, there is the classic old-time influence peddling, where you're just trying to make some introductions. And then there's this new era of the Trump world, where you have a president who is out bullying companies in public, and you have someone offering, to use the Sopranos analogy, coming in saying, if you want these attacks to go away, hire me. I'm someone that can show you how to do it.
Let's listen to what Eric Swalwell told Ari Melber today.
Just like most Trump family members or Trump employees or Trump campaign team members, any tree that you shake in this Trump forest, a Russian falls out. The president is in a position where he and his lawyer are deceiving the American people. And a president who lies is a president who is weak.
And David Frum, here we see in the Michael Avenatti massive flows of money, of course, standing behind one big pot is a Russian oligarch.
Right. And we have discovered, thanks to the amazing reporting of David Fairholt, that beginning in about 2006, the Trump organization suddenly seemed to have a lot of cash to spend, but they spent it in weirdly unwise ways on money-losing golf courses. And there is this larger question of where do these flows of very large sums of money into the Trump organization come from? And we think we shake the tree and we think we know the answer.
Matt Miller, in terms of what we're seeing Michael Avenatti unearth every other week, it seems, there's something kind of extraordinary coming from him. Who's feeding off who here? Is Avenatti working off of what appear to be fruits of federal investigations, or is he feeding federal investigations?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. We know that he's been cooperating with the investigation in the Southern District of New York looking into potential campaign finance violations. He said that publicly. But it does appear that the release that he made yesterday was probably the result of an internal federal investigation, I would suspect, from the Treasury Department, possibly leaked from the Justice Department, but most likely leaked from the Treasury Department. And it does lead you to ask the question, are there other people going to come forward? If someone did leak that would be an inappropriate act, and someone will probably have to pay the consequence for it. But there are other people, whistleblowers, either in the private sector or in the public sector, who might look at Michael Avenatti now as someone who's out taking on the president and say, this is someone I can bring information to. He will take it public. He's not afraid to back down, and someone I can share, damaging information and make sure it gets in the right hands.
David, from one thing I've learned about Michael Avenatti is he always knows more than what he tells us in any given round, and you can actually feel it when you sit here with him and he's talking to you. Last night he was very clear about having information about where the money went. Last night's discussion and today's discussion with him has been the money that has come in to Michael Cohen. He definitely seems to know something about where the money went, and he has, in effect, promised that that's the next chapter of this story for him.
Well, I've been worrying for a long time, worrying and sort of hoping, too. The United States government is in the grip of what you might call an autoimmune disorder. All through the government, there are people who are seeing things that are not appropriate for a president of the United States to do, worse than not appropriate. And what do they do about that? Well, many of them, as we've been suggesting here, they are doing things that aren't appropriate for them because the system is reacting to this alien intrusion of something it's never seen before. And it's shedding information in directions where it thinks it can do some good for self-protective purposes. There's some enduring systematic ethical and institutional questions. How do you carry on the government if people develop these habits of leaking in order to protect the country from leaders who they see as improper?
Matt Miller, as I say, it does sound like the next chapter for Michael Avenatti at some point in the next couple of weeks is going to be where that money went, and he is strongly suggesting it didn't all go to Michael Cohen.
Look, whoever provided him the information about Michael Cohen's bank accounts clearly was able to see what money was coming into the bank account. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't also be able to see where that money was going to when it left his bank account, whether it was going to finance his other businesses or whether it was going to, someone else in the Trump organization, in the Trump world, maybe even the president himself. There's no reason to think that the people that leaked that information to him stopped there and don't have the second shoe ready to drop.
Matt Miller and David Frum, thank you both for joining our discussion tonight. Appreciate it.